The 1968 Olympics marked a point in history in which power of sports was utilized to create social reform and change. The original controversy revolved around the participational status of South Africa in the Games. The discriminatory and oppressive societal practice of apartheid profusely created segregation, restricted black South Africans from similar rights and civil liberties of their white counterparts, and the nation was engulfed in an era of racial divide and heightened tension. There were originally over 30 nations that protested the participation of South Africa in the Olympics through the threat of withdrawing from the Games, barring a South African team being sent to Mexico City. South Africa's Olympic teams were known for not being racially integrated and systematically restricting black players from their rosters. Due to the profuse push from important civil rights figures in other African nations, South Africa would be banned from the 1968 Olympics by the IOC and were restricted from the Olympics for 2 decades. There were many other global events and dynamics that shaped the legacy of the 1968 Olympics and influenced the civil protests and change that came out of it. Black people throughout America, like boxer Muhammad Ali, was vehemently opposed to the Vietnam War for many reasons, the greatest being, why should colored men go to the war for the white men in order to kill other colored people around the world? Furthermore, the recent assassination of peaceful American and civil rights icon Martin Luther King further upset black Americans and incited greater push for change. Around the months leading up to the Games, San Jose State track speedsters Tommy Smith and John Carlos were very aware of the sheer inequality that marginalized groups face worldwide. Their shared interest in social justice led them to being associated with Dr. Harry Edwards, a San Jose State sociology professor. They formed the Olympic Project for Human Rights, which aimed to boycott, protest, discuss, and create change for not only the representation and equality for marginalized minority groups in sports, but greater society. Harry Edwards was quickly able to transform the Olympic Project for Human Rights into an organization that was more than just sports. He strategically used the language and goal for human rights as a media appealing and encapsulating push to promote black power and social change through his organization. He aligned himself with current Pan-African sentiment and widened his organization's views and values, evolving the OPHR into so much more. This would influence athletes like Ulas Sindor and Jim Brown to speak up. OPHR sprinter Smith and Carlos designed and executed a symbolic protest on the podium following the 200-meter race. The duo was further inspired to carry out the protest due to a recent massacre that had occurred in Mexico, in which police fired on a massive group of protesters and which killed 300 innocents. The two men sported beaded necklaces to symbolize protest against lynchings, black t-shirts to cover up the U.S. jerseys, and raised their fists covered in black gloves during the Star-Spangled Banner. Protest made by Smith and Carlos during the medal ceremony undoubtedly sent shockwaves around the entire world and caused their message to be echoed by the millions of oppressed voices around the globe. Essentially, this protest shined a new light on the reality of racial inequality in America and the greater globe. However, the two sprinters were promptly removed from the Olympic Village and the Games as a whole and were condemned by many. They were banned by the American Olympic Committee from Olympic participation, including the 72 Games. Despite backlash, there would be great progress and change that came from their act of symbolism. This unprompted act of defiance would pave the way and allow athletes all across the world to use their platform to bring social issues to the forefront of discussion. The blueprint left by the OPHR allowed athletes like Colin Kaepernick to speak up and fight for issues they cared about. Through the OPHR, Smith and Carlos, athletes were able to find their voice and use their status as a method to raise awareness for racial inequality and spread activism.
The 1936 Olympics were held in Berlin, Germany under Nazi rule, and this event was mainly used by Adolf Hitler to promote his idea of Aryan racial discrimination to the world. The games were propagandized with huge stadiums, lots of flags and symbols, and the Nazi party everywhere. Regardless of this, African-American athlete Jesse Owens won 4 gold medals, all while facing challenging racist ideology. The Olympics in 1936 weren't just about sports. They were filled with political tension. Germany was already discriminating against Jewish people, and many countries stopped boycotting because of this. Germany tried to hide their racism, but it was clear that politics were influencing everything at this time. The 1936 Games were controversial before they even begun, because many countries considered boycotting due to Hitler's policies and claims, especially his anti-Semitism. Germany, even for a short while, cleaned up their image by removing signs banning Jews and allowing one Jewish athlete on the team, but it was all for show. Even though there wasn't a big public protest, some athletes made silent but powerful statements. Like Jesse Owens' victories were full of protest by simply being successful in all of his events. His performance alone directly challenged the racist beliefs that the Nazis were trying to support during that time. The impact of the 1936 Olympics still lasts today and is still well respected in civil rights history books. Ultimately, Hitler wanted the game to support his message of racial supremacy, but at the end, it didn't work out. Jesse Owens showed that through his talent, encouragement has nothing to do with the color of a person's skin. The 1936 and 1968 Olympics both had powerful moments. Jesse Owens challenged Nazi racism by winning 4 golds in Berlin, but the 1968 Black Power salute by Tommy Smith and John Carlos had a deeper impact. Their protest sparked global attention to racism and became a lasting symbol of civil rights and resistance.
The 1972 Olympics were held in Munich, Germany, while the 1968 Olympics were held in Mexico City. Both cities had political issues and social climates as the Olympics were held. Mexico City had the student protests and killings, while Munich took place after the events of World War II. Though the games were held in different years and places, they were connected by the protests and activism that were portrayed. The 1968 Olympics were caused by the issues of apartheid, the Cold War, and Mexico student massacres. Similarly, the Cold War was a prominent issue in the 1972 Olympics, and it was taking place after the events of World War II. However, it is clear that with apartheid, the Cold War, and the Mexican massacres, the 1986 Olympics had more social and political issues surrounding them. The 1972 Games were struck by tragedy when a Palestinian terrorist held hostage and killed many Israeli athletes. As Avery Brundage says in his speech, "The Games must go on." This controversial decision to continue the Games made many Israeli people protest the Olympics, wondering how the Games could continue after such a tragedy. The Israeli people were outraged. Protests and activism were prominent in both Olympic Games. In 1972, they showed an act of political violence. A newspaper says, "Early this morning, when Arab commandos armed with automatic rifles broke into the quarters of the Israeli team and seized 9 people as hostages. The terrorist attacks were used as a way to advocate for the release of Palestinian prisoners. In this way, both of the Games were tied in with protests, but different in the extent and severity." 1972 impact. The 1972 Olympics exposed terrorism on the world stage and exposed the IOC's vulnerabilities, showing the flaws and calling for a rejuvenation of its safety and security rules. The flaws are shown by this line from an article from Britannica. Munich organizers spent less than $2 million in security, and security personnel were to be unarmed, inconspicuous, and non-confrontational. This shows the apparent flaws of the 1972 Olympics Committee. Both of the Olympic Games were highly influential. 1968 empowered many to use their platform to advocate for change, and 1972 helped reshape anti-terrorism efforts. Although both made their imprint into the history of the Olympics, 1968 left a deeper cultural and social mark, empowering athletes to use their platform for change and paving the way for generations to do the same.